Hello. Today I'll be teaching my Origami Falcon model that was taught a few days ago at the Origami USA annual convention. In the description, you will find a link to a presentation that has photo diagrams for all of the steps up to the shaping part. There are also some reference photos to help with shaping and a crease pattern for the head. In this video, I plan to go over the entire model from start to finish, along with some new references that I have found over the past few days to help with the final shaping part. Alright, let's begin. Start color side up and fold your sheet in half. Unfold, arrange your paper as such, and fold in half along the diagonal only on this half of the sheet. Also, if you would like to see paper recommendations, once again, please just go to the link in the description. Alright, turn the paper around to the white side and fold both of the bottom corners to the center such that you have half of a split space. Take the right tip and fold it back down to the center, to the edge at the center. Only pinch the crease in the middle. Turn the sheet back around to the colored side. And we will now be making a crease that runs from one corner through the intersection of the diagonals that we just created. So the fold is going to start here, and it's going to run through this intersection. Now we are going to divide our sheet into fifths by taking this and sliding the paper up so that we have a horizontal crease that will meet the edge where this diagonal meets the edge. So the dotted line shows the crease that we just made, and it's going to intersect the edge at the same point where this slanted fold meets the edge. Alright, so this is a fifth of our sheet. Now we want to divide this fifth into fourths with alternating mountains and valleys. So let's begin by bringing the raw edge to the new crease that we created. Don't unfold just yet, and bring the raw edge back down to the bottom. Now I'm going to bring the entire bottom up along this existing valley fold. And then once again, bring the top to the bottom. Alright, this is a side view. And these will be our toes. And if you notice, right now we have 2 of these mountain shapes. We need 3 of them in order to create 4 toes. As a result, we need to continue this pattern of mountains and valleys twice. So that means creating a new mountain here. And a new valley here. You may make those folds however you wish. However, I will do so by grabbing this mountain, folding it up, and then using this folded edge as a reference so that I can align this fold. So now I'm going to fold the paper back and make a new crease that is in alignment with this folded edge. So that will create the mountain, and to create the valley, I'm going to unfold on the white side, grab this mountain, fold it up, and once again repeat the same process. Alright, this should be your final result. On the colored side, you should have 3 mountains and 3 valleys. Turn the sheet over to the white side. Bring each of the 2 top corners to the innermost mountain fold. Now, turn back to the colored side, and we're going to make a horizontal valley crease that runs through the intersection of the diagonals that we just created. You can use this alignment as a reference. Alright, now we are going to bring the bottom corners up to the valley crease that we just created. Turn your sheet back over to the white side and bring both sides of the paper to the center. Unfold. Now we will need to create the two following angle bisectors. Alright, so we are dividing this portion in half. I will do that by grabbing either one of these mountains and bringing the paper up. Make sure to only crease until the vertical crease that we just created. Alright, now we can collapse this water bomb. As such, I'm going to bring both sides to the center and collapse. Alright, I'm going to take each of these flaps and fold them to the center. Unfold, and these pre-creases will set us up for a petal fold. We will begin by lifting this flap up along a new valley fold that runs across like this. So this will be a new crease that we need to make. In addition, as we collapse, we will fold down the flaps using two new mountains. Alright, so first, take this flap, lift it, fold it along this new crease. Next, bring the sides in along the pre-creases and collapse everything down. In the process, making 3 new folds. Now, we will need to divide each of these flaps into thirds. I will do this by estimation. So first, I will grab one of the flaps, fold it over, make an approximate. Then, I'm not creasing just yet. And then I'm going to bring the flap back. Once again, not making a full crease. Now, I will play around the paper and slide it around until each of these columns are equal width. And at that point, you will have thirds. Alright, so this is what it should look like. And then you can make sharp creases. Now, in order to ensure that the other side is exactly the same, let's keep this folded and bring the other flap and align it with this flap. Unfold, and now we will open sync in and out along these pre-creases. So let me demonstrate on one side. I'm going to open the paper, and now as I perform this open sync, I will need to reverse the direction of some of the folds. For example, here there is a valley that I will need to convert into a mountain. However, here it is already a mountain. This side as well, this is a valley and we need to change it to a mountain. Alright, so this is the open sync in. Now we need to open sync back out. Notice how I'm gently folding in the valleys until finally the paper will naturally want to flatten down. Alright, I will demonstrate once more on the other side. Alright, once you have completed, you can turn your sheet over and bring each of the flaps to the center, folding an angle bisector. Do not worry if there is a slight misalignment here at the bottom. That should be there. Unfold, and now we can inside reverse fold both of these flaps. This can also be done as a squash fold. So I'm going to pivot the paper and squash this flap down along pre-existing creases. Next, I simply fold this flap back. Repeat on both sides. Alright, now we can turn our sheet back over, and we are going to make the two following pre-creases. Once again, 2 valley angle bisectors. To make this easier, I'm going to fold this bundle of paper over so that I have room to bring this flap to the center. Unfold, shift the bundle, and repeat on the other side. Alright, now we can unfold these inside reverse folds that we made previously. And then turn your sheet over to this side. Now we are going to refold these pleats at the bottom. Making no new creases. Alright, now we will need to perform a series of inside reverse folds in and out. So essentially, this is what the final result should look like. So I will do this by, I am going to begin on the left side. I'm going to take the first flap and bring it down to the bottom. Then I'm going to take the flap and fold it back up. Finally, I can grab the whole flap, bring it down, and fold this flap to the horizontal valley. Now we can simply inside reverse fold in and out along these pre-creases. So I'm going to open the paper. First make an inside reverse fold in, and then out, and finally in once again. You will now need to repeat this 5 times. To make it easier, I will do 1 from each side at a time, and then after that I will bring the flap down so that I have the space to make the folds on the next flap. So I will not be fast forwarding the folding process. However, I will create timestamps so that any of you can fast forward if needed. You could also skip these pre-creases if you feel confident folding without them. when you have completed these folds, this is what your paper should look like. So now we are going to refold these inside reverse folds. Make sure that you're folding through this thick layer of paper. Alright, now we can simply create a petal fold here. So this is similar to before. Alright, we're going to lift the paper on a new valley fold and then bring the sides in along an angle bisector as such. Alright, if you wanted to, you could also pre-crease by first bringing each side to the center. And now performing the petal fold. So I am going to lift this flap up, and then I will collapse the sides in. At the very top here, where the paper gets very thick, you do not need to fully crease through, because eventually this will become the tail, and this trap paper will come out like this. So I'm going to keep the fold here soft. Alright, now I will turn my sheet over. Oh, sorry, before we do that, make sure to bring this tip down as far as it can go. Now we can turn the sheet over, and we are going to collapse the paper beginning on a valley fold on a pre-existing crease that runs across here. You should already have that crease. So let's begin by folding the paper up on this fold. As we fold it up, I am going to use my fingers and hold these two flaps together. And then I'm going to shift my view to the side to this area. Notice that this corner is popping out at the moment. I will use my finger to pop it in. And notice that the paper will now naturally want to lie along this valley. And notice how this structure forms. Okay? So we are making no new creases. Everything should be on existing pre-creases. At this stage, I can flatten the paper down like this. So now I will show the process again on the other side. So we begin with a valley here. come to the side, pop this corner in, and then collapse the paper. Okay, so now I will bring each of these corners. I'm going to fold it over until it meets this pleated edge. And I'm going to fold it over as far as I can because it will be limited by the edge. Now we will perform a swivel fold. So I'm going to unfold this flap, lift this first layer, and perform a swivel fold like this. And then flatten the paper. Alright, so same thing on the other side. There will need to be a new fold here in order to flatten the paper. Alright, now we are ready to fold our whole model in half. And as we do so, we are going to release this trapped paper here. Arrange your paper as such, and we're going to take two flaps and fold them over. Repeat on the other side. Now, I will grab the leg flap, and I'm going to pull it down like this. I'm going to pull it down until it is in alignment with this. In doing so, we will need to make two new creases in order to collapse the paper. So let me first perform the fold, and then I will show. Alright, so this is what it looks like on the inside. So there's a new crease here. And there's also a new crease there. Notice that they do not align with each other. Alright, let's repeat. So swivel the layer down and collapse. Okay, now I will begin. Alright, so now we begin the shaping phase. So if you were following along the photo diagrams, this is where the diagrams end. Okay? So at this point, I will also be switching papers. Alright, the sheet is bigger, it's easier to see, and it will make the shaping process easier. Alright, so let's begin with a crimp that will allow us to create the neck and the shape of the wing. The crimp will look like this. So this is a mountain, and they will be perpendicular to the edge. So let's first make this inside reverse fold. Notice how it starts here. Okay, so after pinching those creases, I'm going to open up the model. Sorry about these folds, we are not making those yet. So now we can bring this whole flap down. Using these creases that we made as the reference. Alright, now the reason we made this crease is actually so that when we turn the model over, we have, okay, so this should be a mountain, and this will be a reference. So I'm going to grab this flap, and I am going to bring it to the crease that we just made. So it's the intersection of the crease that we just made and the center line. So at that point, I'm going to bring this tip to it. Fold and unfold, and repeat. Okay. Now I will need to make, alright, so this is the crease that we just made. Now we need to create the following crease. Okay. We can make this by bringing the bottom flap up, and a lot of things should come into alignment. So for example, this will want to flatten out. We don't necessarily need to crease there, but this should be fully extended. And then here, it should come down to the corner. And I'm just going to crease through on this side. Alright. There we go. So now we have these two creases. At the point where they intersect, I am going to bring the tip to it. Alright, repeat on the other side. Make sure you leave a little room here. This will later on become a tail feather. Alright, so now we can fold our model back in half and continue on the neck. Alright, so let's fold these crimps like this. Now we need to grab this flap, and I'm going to adjust it, pivoting it here until I leave myself an equal gap on this side of the paper. See how there's a small gap there? And on this side of the paper. Okay? So both sides will have a very small gap. Now let me draw out the crease I just made. So notice how it meets this vertical crease, and then it runs down here like this. It is also not parallel to the mountain. Okay. All right, now let's finish the shape of the wing with 2 inside reverse folds on this flap. All right, let's just inside reverse fold that corner in. Okay, now we start the head. And for that, I will be changing to this paper in order to make everything easier to see. So, just imagine that this part is this whole sheet of paper. All right. So we will also be starting with a crimp, and the mountain for that crimp begins here. Okay, so what's the reference? If you open up, you'll notice this synced corner. So we are going to mountain fold the paper back so that it runs across. Also, for all of the folds on the head, I recommend making softer folds, which will overall contribute to a rounder and more natural looking head. So this is the mountain. The valley to our crimp runs down like this. As a reference point, I like to go by fourths. So if I divide this width into fourths, this valley will approximately originate 1/4 of the way in. Okay. So you don't have to be too exact with it, but definitely make sure that you're leaving some space here. All right, so something like this. All right, so same on the other side. And this is the result. Notice that at this point the model becomes 3D, and this is what we want. Okay, so I will help the paper create this diamond shape on top. All right. Now, let's unfold for a quick moment and fold the first layer of this flap to the center like this. We're going to start at the mountain fold of the crimp. And we're not going to bring it all the way down to the tip. So the reference is that when you complete the fold, it should lie such that this edge is parallel to the center. All right, now let's fold this tip back on the mountain fold. Again, make sure we're making these creases soft. Runs across like this, starting at this corner. All right, so just a soft fold. And now I'm going to remake the crimps. And now I'm going to bring this flap back out so that we create the beak. A reference for how far to fold it back out would be if we were to divide this triangle's height into thirds, like this. I would fold it out approximately a little less than 1/3 from here. All right, so something like this. And this really shouldn't be a straight fold across. But the best way to make the crease is really to just get to this stage and then adjust the beak until you're satisfied with the angle. So don't make it completely flush with the top. Pull it down just a little bit for a slight angle. All right, now we can pull the bottom beak down to create the mouth. Finally, let's make an inside reverse fold on just the top beak. As an approximate reference, you can go half of this length. Try to make it so that there's just, you see a little bit of this tip hanging out. Now I want to curve the bottom beak by pinching. Like this. All right. Now I'm going to make a mountain fold to create the shape of the cheek. Running across like this. So I'm not going to hide it inside. I'm going to leave it out here hanging, and that will contribute to the shape of the cheek. In addition, notice how this kind of formed naturally, right? So initially it was like this, but the paper naturally pops out. That's fine. It looks better like this. And just let the paper sit how it wants to. All right, now in order to create the eye shape, you can create it however you'd like. For example, if you wanted to, you can simply bring the top down like this to create an eye. That looks completely fine. The way I like to do it, however, is by, so I'm unfolding my model to demonstrate the crease. If you were to unfold, you would have this crease, which is pre-existing. It goes straight across like that. I want to make a new curve that looks like this. Okay. So we can do this by I'm here. I'm going to use my thumb to push this paper. I'm pushing it in. If we come from the top, you'll notice that I'm folding along this bottom curve. Okay. If we come back to the side, this is what we should have. And let's finish the shape of the eye with just a mountain that curves around like this. So once again, I will unflatten to draw out the fold. Something like this. Sorry, this wasn't exactly the correct shape. So ignore that. Something like that. All right. Now I can further deepen this crevice and enhance the shape of the head by bringing these two edges together. So I am pushing with my fingers like this. Don't be scared of this step. All right, so that should round the head a little, while also helping the paper create this downward bend. All right, so you can really shape the taste. Just in terms of my preference, I also like to create somewhat of a valley that runs like this. Again, this isn't a firm valley, this is just a soft shaping fold. Okay, and once again, I'm letting this flap hang. Sorry. All right, now let's repeat on the other side. I begin by taking my thumb and pushing some paper out. Next, I will pinch a curve on the top here. Next, we can fold this flap in softly. Now I'm going to bring these two edges together. So we have something like this. Now this is just cami, so the shape won't necessarily hold. But that is basically the head. If you wanted to, you can also mountain fold this to round off the head. It's preference. Okay. So now I will be returning to the full body model. And I won't be folding the head. Alright, let's take the wing, and I'm going to shift it so I can see the inside. We are going to fin the wing. So let's first do that by making a pre-crease like this. Alright, so just fold it back in alignment with the folded edge. Now we can bring the edge to that pre-crease. Like this. And the final step for finning the wing is I'm going to fold this tip down on a fold that begins where the paper changes angle here. Alright, so I'm going to begin it there. And then finally, I'm going to turn the model back around, and I'm going to crease it so that it is in parallel with this folded edge here. However, you can shape it to your own taste. Alright? Other side. Alright, now we will create the feathers. And, alright, sorry, so let's first begin by, we are going to shift these pleats in order to create this ripple. So I'm going to grab the first layer, and then I'm going to slide it, swiveling it from here, and make a new crease on the back like that. Notice how that creates this small discrepancy. Now I'm going to grab the first two layers and perform the same shift. Once again, making a crease back there. All right, this is just a very small detail, and this gives us these feather flaps. Now I will come back here. There is no real reference for this, and it depends on how far you want each of these little nubs for the feathers to be, in terms of how you want them to be spaced from each other and how far out you want it to start from this wing flap. So for example, if you wanted this first feather to be right at the wing flap, you would fold this first flap down directly where the paper meets the wing flap. However, I wouldn't recommend this. I would go a little bit above that. So make sure you're turning the paper around to see how everything looks, because this is all up to taste. Alright, so I'm going to draw out the fold that I'm making. It's like this. So straight across, giving myself a little bit of space here. Alright, so notice how we've created this first feather flap. So now we're here. And the second flap, I need to fold it down less in order to create a gap between the feathers. So this is the first fold. This is the second fold that we're making right now. And it doesn't really matter how this paper flattens. It will naturally flatten in a structure like this, but it can't be seen from the outside. And finally, this flap, just fold it down. So now we have these three feather nubs. This is all up to your preference. If you wanted to make all of them super close to one another, you would just make these valleys closer to one another. In addition, if you wanted your wing to be shorter, like this, then you would make the final fold farther down. Okay? So decide how you want your wing to look and make the folds accordingly. Alright, I will repeat on the other side. Begin with the shifts. Alright, and the final steps for the wings is simply some very small inside reverse folds on these newly formed tips in order to give it a more rounded appearance. So maybe just take your fingernails, give it a small nudge, just to round off that corner. Very small detail. Alright, so this is the completed wing. Now we move on to the leg. So I'll be referring to this larger sheet of paper in order to show some of the details on the leg. So the back side of the leg, this is the straight vertical, and the left will be the angled. So this is how I am going to position my model. So first, I want you to fold this flap forward like this. This is on a mountain fold, such that when you open the paper, it directly aligns with these sunk triangles. Alright, so like that. It should also feel natural because that's where the paper goes from thin to thick. Alright, now we're going to fold this up like that. So let me make these folds here. Alright, now what I need to do is to lift the wing flap. Actually, sorry. We are going to look at the model from below like this. And I am going to fold this flap up like this. So notice how this corner meets this intersection. Now I will bring this back down. Although as a reference, you can fold it such that this corner is aligned with here. I would personally just advise turning the sheet over and really looking at the length here and deciding how long you want your leg to be. So I think that is a little too short, so I'm just going to fold it out a little bit more. It's up to taste. Alright. Now I will need to thin out this leg with mountains on each side. So first I'm going to do the back layer. I'm going to push the paper back, creating a mountain. for both the leg flap and this leg feather flap. I'm doing so in a way that leaves a small little gap here, and you don't necessarily need to fold this. You don't need to flatten this back, but leave it hanging out in order to give it a more 3D appearance. Alright, now we need an accompanying mountain fold on the other side, really thinning that leg out. You can also flatten this with a sink like this. However, it isn't necessary. Alright, so that should thin out the leg. And of course, you can adjust it how you like the leg to be shaped. So I might just pull the leg a little bit forward, because I like this corner to be aligned with the front edge of the leg. I'll taste. Now we will need a crimp that moves the leg forward. Okay. Of course, you can make that crimp however you'd like. If you really wanted a reference, you can go off of starting the crimp on the intersection between these two diagonals. Alright, so if you wanted to, you can start the crimp here. And I like to continue the crease so that it is in parallel with the back. Now this depends on how far you folded the back. So really it's all up to personal preference. Something like that. Alright, so this is what it looks like on my final model. Notice how these are basically parallel, but it all depends on how you want the shape of your leg to look. So I will create that mountain, and then just a small valley here, which will dictate how far forward your leg goes. Alright, so I'm just playing around with the paper, making some small adjustments. Okay. If you want further shaping help, you can refer to some of the reference photos that I have on the presentation in the description. Okay, so the final step for the leg would be to open out the toes. So now I'm once again referring to this large model. I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to create the back toe by bringing this flap back, folding it back as far as you can. Okay, like this. This creates the back toe, and now all is left to do is to shape the toes by creating some small curved folds like this. Then you can open it all up like this. And when you open this third toe out, I usually like to cheat the back toe even more back in order to get it to look longer, like this. So I'm getting a little more length on the back toe. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to finish curving these toes. Something like this. I believe here I shaped this slightly differently by, instead of crimping it like this, I crimped it like this. It's a small adjustment that makes the paper sit like this instead. And then we can fin the sides. Alright, so coming back to my original model, right, the back toe goes back. And then alright, so something like that. I'm not going to go ahead and shape all of them because I've demonstrated it here. Alright. So that is going to be the shape of our leg. Now let's make a crimp on the tail. The fold will look like this. The mountain of the crimp will originate where the paper changes angle here. And it's going to run into here. The valley for the crimp will look like this. It's the very small crimp, and the purpose of this crimp is to, first, we're creating an additional little detail here, this small feather that looks like this on the final result. In addition, we're bringing the tail downwards such that it is in better alignment with the body as a whole, because ideally this tail should somewhat be in alignment with the neck, not completely, but. And finally, this crimp allows us to create some 3D shape as we can press down here on the top and really give some volume to the body here. Alright, so same crimp on the other side. And your final result is something like this. Now, notice that the wings look too far out. So I like to bring the wings in alignment by folding this down. So I like to make a soft mountain fold like this. So it begins straight, and then as it comes out, I give it a gentle curve, and then the fold weakens and disappears. something like this. Okay. So up here, this creates a better shape for the wing, makes it more streamlined. And then as we come towards the bottom, I'm going to curve it out. This gives emphasis to the feathers, like this. Okay. I'm not necessarily folding it back. You could, but I'm keeping the paper here so it's somewhat perpendicular to the body. As a final note, if you're willing to use glue, alright, so let's quickly make the curve on this side. I would recommend gluing the two wing flaps together like this. This allows the body to be more compact, and it also realistically emulates how the wings of a perched falcon are folded together. I've tried inserting one wing into the other like this before. However, it usually doesn't stay together. Alright, other than that, that's it for the model. If you made it this far in the video, I hope your model looks great. And there are reference photos in the description to further help with shaping. Alright, so if you have any questions, any concerns, please let me know for email or in the comments. I really hope you enjoyed this, and thank you so much.